Alright, Shalom. Before I start, I'm going to give all praises to Yahweh, Bahasham, Yahweh Shai, Bahasham, Rachak Rash, double honors to the elders and apostles, a great millstone, peace, blessings, and salutations to all the elect Akim Wa'akwath, learning and teaching in truth and sincerity in the video of the Spirit, your brother Malak from GMS Detroit. Alright, right here, right now the Spirit is on the elder brother Manata Zakba to do these videos, right, highlighting people who are talking smack about the Israelites. A lot of them, so-called Christians, right? I'm not clicking on anyone in particular or using anyone. None stand out more than others. They're all a bunch of scoffers who are going to perish. But the fact that, we're going to play a little hypothetical game for this video, right? Let's say, because now we understand the truth. We understand salvation is only for the Israelites. Flat the fuck out. No way around it, right? But if salvation was for all nationalities and peoples, which it's not, this is hypothetical, these Christians who are scoffing at us and talking smack against us because we believe that we're the Israelites, they're actually they're going against the commandment given to them by Paul. Where is that at? Romans the 11th chapter. Romans the 11th chapter is a big cut to all these Christians, these so-called Gentiles who find themselves having an issue with the Hebrews. Right now, when you know the New Testament, one theme that you see is that the Hebrews, the Israelites who knew that they were Israelites, so this is coming back to reality. The Israelites who knew that they were Israelites and the Israelite foreigners, known as Gentiles, also known as Grecians, sometimes they would be at a rivalry, right? The Grecians would feel like that sometimes the Hebrews would be getting special treatment, and the Hebrews that sometimes would feel like the so-called Gentiles, the Israelite foreigners, would be getting special treatment. Where do we see an incident of this play out? Let's get this Acts 6:1, and then we're going to be connected in Romans the 11th chapter here in a minute. Acts 6:1, it says, "And in those days, when the number of the disciples was multiplied, there arose a murmuring of the Grecians against the Hebrews, because their widows were neglected in the daily ministration." Right, so we see in this case, this instance, the Hebrews were being taken care of more than the Grecians, the Hellenistic Israelites were. So they said, hey, we need to do something about this. So what? They set up, you read these verses down here, the 12 said, look, we got bigger fish to fry. We're going to set up men to orchestrate and take care of this, right? And you see some of the men that got set up were what? Philip, Prochorus, says Nicanor, Timon, Parnaeus, Nicholas, says what? A proselyte of Antioch, and chiefly of them was Stephen. Then we get into Stephen's story, what happened to him and whatnot. This was set up to make sure that things were being dealt and done equally, that there was no, rivalry nor competition between amongst the two groups, right? Both were Israelites, both believe, but come from slightly different backgrounds. You had the Israelites who knew that they were Israelites, that were looking at the Gentiles sideways, like, hey, wait a minute, these dudes was just worshiping idols, eating abominable foods, and now you're telling us, we gotta sit and be cool with them? And then vice versa. The Israelite foreigners, they're being told, stop eating this, stop eating that, stop doing this, stop doing that, nigga, you's a nigga. All that type of talk. So men were set up to handle both sides. Peter dealt with who? The circumcision. Paul dealt with who? The uncircumcision. You if you've read through the scriptures, all right, and you're worth your weight in salt, this shouldn't be new to you, right? But then you get to Romans the 11th chapter, and we're seeing that Paul is putting forth something to those Gentiles, which were the Israelite foreigners. I can't stress enough, right? And I started with that hypothetical because if these Christians truly believed in the Bible, when they read and get to Romans the 11th chapter, after they read Romans the 11th chapter, none of these videos wouldn't exist, because after reading that chapter, they would have to realize that they can't be talking shit and backbiting at us. Right here, goofy, lying Christians, the law's not done away with. You are a Hebrew, you are not a Hebrew Israelite, black man. Look at all this shit.
Hello, everybody. May the Lord bless you, may He keep you, may His face shine upon you, and may He give you peace. So today I'm here to just shed some light on how the enemy might be able to confuse the minds of a black person in America who believes that they're a Hebrew Israelite.
So already, we see what type of time he's on. Let me see. This is the reason why I be avoiding these. I watch them when brothers show them to me, right? But watching this should be stressful.
So guys, have you guys ever been talking to a Hebrew Israelite and they go to Deuteronomy 28 and 68 and they
So I'm not even gonna let him get nothing else out. So they're scoffers, right? Clearly.
Here, you guys. I want to expose these so-called Hebrew Israelites. I'm going to show you guys that they're...
So y'all see what type of time they're on, right? Now, what do the scriptures say about the so-called Gentiles, which they're claiming to be, which the people of the world misunderstand the terminology behind Gentiles. We, in the truth, understand it to be the Israelite foreigners, which is true and proper. The Israelites who fell away from their customs, right, were cast out, and after time came back through Yahushai, right? They believe that a Gentile is anybody, can be any nationality in the world, which is not correct. Let me get this Romans now. And so you read through scriptures, you read through, the incident in Galatians where Paul said what he said, right? He saw Peter chilling with the Gentiles. Then when the Jews showed up, he got up and separated himself, right? You see, you had the Israelites, what was that, in Acts, one of the chapters, they made Paul, still do a sacrifice. You go to Acts the 15th chapter, right? He told them not to force the Gentiles to keep the laws, which even our fathers couldn't keep. Acts 15 and 10. You see this back and forth between the two groups. So we get to Romans the 11th chapter. Let's start at even here at the top. Paul reminds us that he's an Israelite of the seed of Abraham, of the tribe of Benjamin, right? We learn in the 7th verse, right? You have the elect who are gonna, receive the word and be saved, and then you have the rest who aren't gonna get it. So now let's deal with and this goes back to Deuteronomy. The people who the Heavenly Father provoked the knowing Jews to jealousy with, this isn't some mystical people that popped out the earth. This goes back to Deuteronomy, right? I believe the 32nd chapter. This is dealing with the Israelite foreigners. So you can use Romans 9, 10, and 11 to prove that the Gentiles are Israelites who fell away from their customs. Each 3 of those chapters have precepts that link back in the Old Testament, showing you that we were going to fall away from our heritage, right? But the Lord was going to redeem us, and now we'd be Gentiles. So coming back here, doing a lot of talking. Salak here, Romans 11 and 9 says, and David saith, let their table be made a snare and a trap and a stumbling block and a recompense unto them. Dealing with the Israelites, they weren't going to be able to understand the truth, although they have the scriptures. Let their eyes be darkened that they may not see, and bow down their back all way, right? So they weren't going to believe, they weren't going to understand spiritual darkness. I say then, have they stumbled that they should fall? The power forbid, Yahweh forbid. But rather through their fall is salvation come unto the Gentiles, for to provoke them to jealousy. Now if the fall of them be the riches of the world, and the diminishing of them the riches of the Gentiles, how much more their fullness, right? So the Israelites, we had to fall. We had to go into a state of sin. If we never sinned, the Gentiles wouldn't have came about anyway. So the Israelites had to fall to Hellenism, had to fall to different forms of, idolatry, gave into the Roman way of life, right? So that By the time the apostles hit the scene, they could be recovered. This all had to happen. It says, "For I speak to you Gentiles, and as much as I am the apostle of the Gentiles, I magnify mine office." So this is Paul speaking. He's saying, look, the Israelites had to fall away so that you Gentiles, could be raised up in the first place. So now we're going to be jumping down a little bit, right? And this is also the parable dealing with the olive tree. The same tree, you have the olive branch and the wild olive branch. Both are an olive tree, meaning what? They're Israelites. One is wild, the Gentiles who begin to do contrary to nature, worshiping idols, all kinds of lewd actions, eating abominable foods. But they're coming back, being grafted back to the truth. Through who? Yahushua, through faith. Romans 11:17. "And if some of the branches be broken off, and thou, Zion," go look that word up. The only way you can graft a tree limb back in is if it's the same family, right? I can't take a olive tree and try to graft it to a goddamn potato stem, right? Or you understand what I'm saying? I can't take a pumpkin vine and try to graft it to a goddamn turnip stem. They have to be the same family. This is one of the parables showing you that the Gentiles were Israelites. It says, "And if some of the branches be broken off, and thou, being a wild olive tree, wert grafted in among them, and with them partakest of the root and fatness of the olive tree," so you Gentiles are coming back to your nature, "boast not against the branches. But if thou boast, thou bearest not the root, but the root thee. Thou wilt say then, the branches were broken off that I might be grafted in." So what is Paul saying here, y'all? He's telling the Gentiles, don't you be talking shit on the Hebrews. Y'all fell away from the way. They didn't. They're the root cause. Right? They are the root, literally. They maintain the culture to a degree, because still in this time, right? Jake weren't wearing their garments, their border and blue and whatnot. So Paul is telling the Gentiles here, the newly returned Israelite foreigners, not to be, having their chest all in the air. Oh, see, we got it too. See, it's up. Paul's saying, no, y'all be chill. In other words, modern day lingo. You feel me? It says, "Thou bearest not the root, but the root thee. Thou wilt then say, the branches were broken off that I might be grafted in." Right. So he's telling the Gentiles, don't develop a high-minded self, a high-mindedness about yourself. Oh, see, it's because of us anyway. We the special ones. Verse 20. "Well, because of unbelief they were broken off, and thou standest by faith. Be not high-minded, but fear." Right. The Gentiles didn't fall away because you were upstanding people. You fell away because you gave into vain philosophies, your forefathers, right? Jason, you read in Maccabees, men like Jason started to, convert Jake into Hellenism. And he wasn't the only one, but he's one of the big ones. You didn't become a wild olive branch through noble ambition. Motherfuckers was robbing, stealing, and killing, sacrificing to idols, sex orgies with their togas on, getting tatted up, bald heads, lesbians, sacrificing your children to idols. So don't be high-minded, but fear. Verse 21. "For if Yahweh spared not the natural branches, take heed lest he also spare not thee." So if the Heavenly Father fucked up the Israelites who knew they were Israelites, how much more could he F you up? And you come from a heathenistic style of life. You're supposed to already be smashed. You're not even supposed to be allowed back. But what? Yahushua's blood helped redeem that, right? Hey, when you take it back. When the Israelite was abandoning their customs, y'all, they were literally looked at as a heathen. If we couldn't kill you, you was exiled. Matthew 18:17. "And if he shall neglect to hear," you know what? Yeah, I'll just start here because it's dealing. A brother has a trespass, right? You take him up to council, he's not listening. Verse 17, and if he shall neglect to hear them, tell it unto the church, the congregation. But if he neglect to hear the church, let him be unto thee as a heathen man and a publican. So the Israelites who fell away from the laws of our forefathers, from the law of Moses, they were literally seen as heathen. Although they were not physically heathen, they were the seed of Israel. You read through the Maccabees, men went off to go, the priests left the temple to play discus, right? Men, abandoning the high holy days so that they could play Greekish sports, right? Many of the Israelites abandoning their ways to adopt Greekish custom. That's all throughout the Maccabees. Shit. Matter of fact, let me get that. The game of discus called them forth. 2 Maccabees 4:14, that the priests had no courage to serve any more at the altar, but despising the temple and neglecting the sacrifices, hastened to be partakers of the unlawful allowance in the place of exercise after the game of discus called them forth. Right. So they butt naked, in the gymnasiums, place of exercise, gymnos meaning naked, tossing a goddamn frisbee around, and many other different things. These men were looked at as heathen, cast away. But centuries down the line, their offspring, the Israelite foreigners, through the preaching of the faith of the apostles of Yahushua, would come back. And so now that they're back, what are they not supposed to do? Be boasting up with their chests in the air towards the Israelites. That's what these verses are dealing with right here, y'all. Yep. So cutting that right there. So I read all this to say this, which we know that salvation is only for Israelites, the so-called Negroes, Latinos, and Native Americans. All right, and the seed scattered abroad. We know that that's the truth. But I'm throwing this hypothetical out here. If these people who claim to be Christians, if they actually knew the Bible and understood it, when they get to this point of the scriptures, they would stop scoffing us, they would stop making fun of us, they would stop talking smack, because Paul directly told them to stop doing that. I punished them, the chosen people, and they were so-called keeping the law. What do you think I would do to y'all? And y'all weren't keeping the law. Y'all were literally doing the exact opposite of what the chosen were. So once again, this video, this is just throwing out, showing you the hypocrisy of these Christians. They don't understand the scriptures, y'all. They don't know nothing about what was going on in the time period. They don't know jack shit about nothing. They jump around. They talk about Jesus. They eat some marshmallows, which is made out of pork, and then they go to sleep. They drink a Dr. Pepper to put their ass to sleep. Wake up and wondering why their insides feel like it's upside down. So that's about it, y'all. But I just find it interesting. You have all these scoffers talking smack against us. Many of them claim to be Christians. But if you're a so-called Christian, even Paul himself told you not to be backbiting against the Hebrews. But that just goes to show they don't know jack shit. So that's it, y'all. I'm gonna give all praises to Yahweh, Bahasham, Yahushai, Bahasham, or Kakorash, double honors to the elders and apostles of Great Millstone. Peace, blessings, and salutations to all the elect Akim wa Akwath, learning and teaching in truth and sincerity. Shalom.